Tonight, John McCain versus the New York Times. The senator denies the paper's suggestion he had an improper relationship with a lobbyist.
I'm very disappointed in the article. It's not true.
Supporters accuse the Times of a smear campaign. I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, an attack on a U.S. embassy. Rioters set fire to the embassy in Belgrade, angry that the U.S. is supporting independence for Kosovo. Babies and pain. Doctors say they do feel it, and now they're finding new ways to treat it. And in the beauty of the mountain snow lies a potential danger. Why this has been an especially deadly season for avalanches.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening, everyone. John McCain was savoring what's become a cakewalk to the Republican presidential nomination when a bundle of morning newspapers came crashing down in his path. It was today's New York Times questioning his ethics. But McCain says the front page story suggesting he had an improper relationship with a lobbyist is not true. And now his supporters and others are questioning the Times journalism and motivations. Nancy Cordes is covering this still developing story. Nancy?
Katie, the campaign put out everyone it had today to combat this article, starting with the candidate himself.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm very disappointed in the article. It's not true.
The front page article quotes two unnamed former associates who say they confronted the senator nearly a decade ago when they became convinced his relationship with a female lobbyist had become romantic. The lobbyist, Vicky Eisman, had telecom clients with business before his Commerce Committee. The anonymous sources tell The Times McCain acknowledged behaving inappropriately and pledged to keep his distance from her.
At no time have I ever done anything that would betray the public trust nor make a decision which in any way would not be in the public interest.
Eisman, now 40, denies the relationship too. Her firm today released a statement saying the story is based upon the fantasies of a disgruntled former campaign employee. The head of the Project for Excellence in Journalism says the gray lady wandered into a gray area with this one.
So this is an odd situation where anonymous sources are not alleging something, they're alleging their feelings about something.
New York Times executive editor Bill Keller turned down interview requests today, saying in a statement, "We think the story speaks for itself. On the timing, our policy is we publish stories when they are ready." The article was in the works for months, but only went to press, the McCain campaign argues, because the left-leaning magazine New Republic was working up its own story about internal debate at the Times over whether to print the sensitive allegations. In the Times, former McCain strategist John Weaver acknowledges he met with Ms. Eisman at Union Station in Washington to ask her to stay away from the senator. He says he was concerned about her conduct and what she had allegedly told people, but he does not say there was an affair.
My children and I not only trust my husband, but know that he would never do anything to not only disappoint our family, but disappoint the people of America.
The Times writers used the rumored relationship to examine whether McCain always meets his own high ethical standards. In 1991, the Senate reprimanded him and four other senators, the infamous Keating Five. Together, they had interfered in the regulation of a savings and loan on behalf of a campaign contributor. It cost some of them their careers. McCain survived by turning his experience into a crusade against special interests and lobbying in Washington. His positions on congressional earmarks and campaign finance reform have made him a hero to good government advocates.
Once you're setting yourself up as a paradigm, as the example, the best example of how an ethical member of Congress should behave, then you got to know people are gunning for you if you're going to make a mistake.
McCain's opponents did their best to avoid the flap today.
I only know him what I know him to be, and that's a good, decent, honorable man.
As conservative commentators rushed to his defense, even Rush Limbaugh took a break from bashing McCain to take on another favored target.
The New York Times endorsed that candidate while they sat on this story, and now with utter predictability, they are trying to destroy him.
And that's an argument the campaign is hoping it can ride all the way to the bank. Already, Katie, they've put out this fundraising letter asking donors to help them combat the liberal establishment and the New York Times.
And Nancy, how does the McCain campaign feel about the way this story is playing out so far?
Well, believe it or not, Katie, they're actually pretty upbeat. They feel like they've weathered the storm and succeeded in turning the attention on the Times. As one very senior aide put it to us today, the story isn't about us anymore. It's about the New York Times.
All right, Nancy Cordes in Washington tonight. Thanks, Nancy. Now to the Democrats. Results are in tonight from Democratic primary voters who live and cast their ballots overseas. More than 22,000 voted, 2/3 choosing Barack Obama, 1/3 Hillary Clinton. A handful of delegates will be apportioned accordingly. As of tonight, our latest CBS News count shows Obama leading Clinton by 100 delegates nationally. The two Democrats are debating tonight in Austin, Texas, and Jim Axelrod is there. Jim?
Well, Katie, Barack Obama's on some kind of roll. In this latest stretch of 10 straight wins in state contests, his narrowest margin of victory has been 17 points. So obviously Hillary Clinton's looking for a big night tonight, certainly a big moment. She'll try to push Barack Obama into making a mistake, but aides say that she'll have the same kind of tone we saw the first time that they met in Los Angeles 3 weeks ago. That is civil and cordial. They don't want her to appear nasty. As for what we'll hear from her, expect to hear her hammer this line that in her view, Barack Obama is not ready to be president. Of course, that's a line she's been pushing all during Obama's momentum surge, and it's had little, if any, traction at all. Katie?
All right, Jim Axelrod in Austin, Texas. Let's turn now to the best political team in the galaxy. Bob Schieffer is our chief Washington correspondent. Jeff Greenfield is our senior political correspondent. Gentlemen, I'm sure you like that. And Jeff, let me start with you. To paraphrase Mark Twain, are reports of Hillary Clinton's political death greatly exaggerated or not?
Well, they're not greatly exaggerated. I mean, she's not done. But look at the reality check. She's 100 delegates behind, counting pledged delegates. Obama has tons more money than she does. Her husband, the president, has said Texas and Ohio are wins or she's done. She's lost almost all of her lead in Texas, if you believe the polls, and more than half in Ohio. So she's got problems.
So what does she need to do?
Well, it's very easy to say what. It's the how. I think she's got to begin connecting to her core voters on a gut level. 10-point programs won't do it. And she's got to explain why her values are closer to theirs than Obama's and why Obama, as Jim Axelrod said, isn't ready. She may have to point to Michelle Obama's statements over the weekend about this is the first time I've been really proud to be an American, and say, what do you think the Republicans are going to do to that? But the key is also to say, you know what, I know I'm behind. A reality check would be very helpful.
So she has to show psychologically that she can turn things around, given the momentum.
Yeah, and stop denying what her situation is. Everybody knows it. She must know it, too.
And meanwhile, Bob, what about this New York Times story about John McCain? Do you think it has legs, and do you think it will trip him up?
I think it has legs, but the legs may be, it may become about the New York Times and not about John McCain. You know, Katie, there were some people in the McCain campaign who actually winced when he was endorsed for the Republican nomination by the New York Times. They thought that would set off the Republican right, and boy, did it ever. It looked like he would never find a way to get those people to warm to him. But look what happened today. Here's Rush Limbaugh coming to his defense, Laura Ingraham. The Christian Broadcasting Network said it is a badge of honor to be attacked by the New York Times. So maybe we're going to see some changes there. And the McCain campaign, as we just heard from Nancy, is trying to do everything they can to take advantage of it. They actually sent out fundraising letters to conservatives today pointing out you got to help us beat back the liberal media and the New York Times.
So now they'll bond over a common enemy. Bob Schieffer. Bob, thanks so much. Jeff, thanks to you as well. Turning overseas now, an angry mob attacked the American embassy in Serbia's capital today and set the building on fire. A charred body, possibly that of a rioter, was later found inside. Tonight, the Bush administration is warning Serbian leaders they'll be held responsible if there is any more trouble. The demonstrators were protesting the U.S. decision to recognize Kosovo, which declared its independence from Serbia on Sunday. More now from Sheila McVicker.
Outraged by the loss of Kosovo, nationalistic Serbs vented their anger on the U.S. embassy in the capital, Belgrade. Fearing violence, the embassy had been closed.
The only people that we have right now at the embassy are the security people and the Marine Guards.
Several hundred men broke away from a larger protest, battering gates, burning the U.S. flag, eventually breaking down doors and setting the visa section on fire.
Now, they're highly organized, they're highly trained in these mob tactics, and they show all signs of having been put up to it by someone else.
Serbs consider Kosovo their historic heartland. Violence has simmered all week since the province declared independence. And tonight, police who normally guard the front of the embassy had disappeared.
There appears to have been no police present whatsoever, and that they seem to have given the rioters some time to run amok before they actually moved in. The government of Serbia may actually have to be held accountable for this.
By the time paramilitary forces appeared, rioters had attacked several more embassies, western banks, and started to loot shops in the city center. Tonight, though, there is an uneasy order in Belgrade. Sheila McVicker, CBS News, London.
Also overseas, a helicopter carrying 3 prominent U.S. senators was forced to make an emergency landing in Afghanistan. It happened in the mountains during a snowstorm. John Kerry, Joe Biden, and Chuck Hagel were later driven to Bagram Air Base and then on to Turkey. The senators were not injured. Earlier in the day, they met with Afghanistan's President Karzai in Kabul. Meanwhile, it was a bullseye. The U.S. military blasted that disabled satellite overnight, and officials say they're 80 to 90% sure they took out the fuel tank just as they planned. Defense Department video shows the missile being fired from the Pacific Ocean, then a huge explosion as it slammed into the target 150 miles above the Earth. The military is hoping most of the satellite's toxic fuel burned up in the fireball and will not reach Earth. There is much more CBS News ahead. Up next, the agony of the world's tiniest patients, how doctors are detecting and easing the pain of newborns. As we continue our series on pain, tonight we focus on babies. The number of premature births in this country is climbing, up 20% since 1990 to more than 500,000 every year. That means more infants need invasive and potentially painful medical intervention. But how much pain do babies really feel? Our medical contributor, CNN's Dr. Sanjay Gupta, has more about detecting and treating pain in infants in our series, Easing the Pain.
So this is Josie?
Yes, this is Josie.
In 3 short weeks of life, Josie Toland has undergone a lifetime's worth of medical procedures. She was born 2 months premature and developed serious lung problems. She's had tubes inserted to help her breathe and to eat, constant sticks in her heels to draw blood.
Babies have an average of 10 to 15 painful procedures per day in this unit if they're under about 30 weeks gestation or if they're really sick like Josie was.
Besides fighting for her survival, doctors have been wrestling with another issue. With everything that's being done to her, how much pain is Josie feeling? As recently as 15 years ago, it was thought newborns were not developed enough to feel or remember pain. Amazingly, newborns often receive little or no anesthesia for most medical procedures, even surgery.
The folklore became babies don't feel pain, anesthesia is bad for them, let's not give anything.
I mean, what you're describing must have been torture for these babies.
Well, I can only imagine.
Dr. KJS Anand is a leading researcher on how to detect pain in these tiny patients. Doctors are able to monitor some of the physical signs of pain like blood pressure and heart rate, but it's trickier to interpret crying and facial expressions.
You can't just stand over an infant 24/7 and watch them, and so that's why I thought, you know, a machine system would be pretty good at handling some of these problems.
Cheryl Branham is a computer scientist working with facial recognition technology to identify key spots in a baby's face that signal pain.
It's wrong to think that every time a baby experiences pain, they're going to cry.
These are photos of ordinary crying. These babies are in pain. The difference? Don't look so much at their mouths. Focus on their foreheads. See how they're furrowed? The hope is that one day a camera would constantly monitor the faces of newborns and alert doctors to even the subtle signs that something is wrong.
It gives the infant a voice. It lets the infant cry out, you know, I'm in pain.
Detecting pain in newborns is one thing. Treating it is another.
Oh, is this baby requiring any pain medication?
She off and on is requiring some morphine.
Morphine?
Unfortunately, the drug to treat newborns' pain are meant for adults, like morphine and methadone. Even today, there's a reluctance by parents and doctors to use them.
There are still medical physicians, nurses who hold out that babies probably don't feel pain.
Some of the techniques to calm babies are simple, creating a quiet atmosphere with low lights and swaddling them for comfort. It's all working for Josie.
Can you say, Doc, without a doubt, that Josie is not in pain right now?
I can.
You can. And you're basing that on?
I'm basing that on the fact that she seems to be comfortable. She's not crying. She seems to be happy.
There's more attention being paid to controlling pain in healthy babies as well, Katie. An interesting study just came out saying putting a little bit of sugar water on a baby's tongue before an immunization shot can really help ease their discomfort.
Which I'm sure the babies appreciate. Meanwhile, is there any evidence, Sanjay, that babies who experience pain when they're little remember it as adults?
You know, we asked that same question. Doesn't look like they remember it specifically, but they're more sensitive to pain as they grow into adults. Also, they're more likely to develop ADD, attention deficit disorder.
And we don't know whether that's because of the pain or because of the environment.
The prolonged hospital stay. It could be either one of those.
All right, Sanjay Gupta. Sanjay, thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
For more on easing the pain, you can go to cbsnews.com and simply click on the CBS Evening News. You'll find the rest of our series as well as information and resources. When we come back, skiers love going off trail, but their quest for adventure may be causing deadly avalanches. This has been a bad winter for avalanches in the West, killing at least 30 people. Unusually deep and unstable snowpacks and a record number of skiers and snowmobilers may be to blame. Here's Sandra Hughes.
With record snowfalls already in February, historically the worst month for avalanches in the West, rescue teams have mobilized. In Montana, they probed for victims after 2 backcountry skiers were killed. In the mountains east of Los Angeles, 3 skiers were killed in 3 avalanches, a snowboarder barely making it out alive.
It's just not worth it. I was fighting for my life the whole night.
In the Snoqualmie Pass, east of Seattle, avalanches have dumped tons of snow onto the interstate. One day's pile, 30 feet high and 400 feet long.
It was like really, really big, just like on the movies.
Conditions are ripe for avalanche when the snow on the mountain is layered and unstable. The trigger is often a person out in the backcountry for a good time. The worst case, a slab avalanche, when heavy wet snow piles up on a base cracked by wind or warming. When it's triggered, the slab breaks and steamrolls down the mountain at speeds up to 60 miles an hour.
After avalanche crews identified a crack and potential danger on this mountain, they roped off the area. It only took about an hour for people to start ignoring these signs.
Like they can't read, they just go nuts when they get up here and they don't pay any attention.
All over the West, workers will set off more explosions to settle the snow and put up more warning signs. The fact is, this isn't the worst avalanche season on record yet. Sandra Hughes, CBS News, Mount Baldy, California.
Now an update. Those 2 pilots suspected of sleeping in the cockpit of a Go Airlines plane were suspended today. The plane en route to Hilo, Hawaii, overshot the airport by 15 miles and had to turn back. The pilots did not answer radio calls for 25 minutes, and the FAA is investigating. Coming up next, Mr. Field goes to Sacramento to tell the legislature there ought to be a law. Last night, we introduced you to a young man in California named RJ. He's had to overcome so much. We end tonight with a new chapter in RJ's story. RJ Field was in Sacramento today to personally introduce a bill that literally has his name all over it. RJ was born addicted to heroin. His mother abandoned him at the hospital, and no one thought he would even survive. In fact, tasks many take for granted, like reading, writing, and walking, are a daily struggle for RJ. If his legislation called RJ's Law passes, it would offer drug rehabilitation to welfare recipients who test positive for illegal drugs. If they refuse, they could lose their benefits. The 16-year-old sophomore wants to make sure other children don't go through what he battles every day. And he wants to save taxpayers the millions of dollars his care has cost through the years. His idea is controversial. The law would require random drug testing for those on welfare. But RJ's never given up a fight he thinks is worth winning.
I just hope it works out
and all we can do is wait right now for it to work out. It's going to take a little while, but I'm not too worried about it.
And that is the CBS Evening News. I'm Katie Couric. Thanks for watching. Good night.